Commander Juan stood on the observation deck of New Haven's small defense station, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Below him, the colony stretched across green valleys and rolling hills. 2 million people called this place home. Children played in parks. Farmers harvested crops. Scientists studied the local ecosystem. It was peaceful. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they left Earth 3 centuries ago. The alarm shattered that peace. Juan's console lit up with warnings. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Big ships. Military ships. Hundreds of them. "Get me Governor Tejan," Juan ordered. His hands were already moving across the controls, activating what little defenses the colony had. New Haven was a civilian settlement. They had mining lasers, cargo haulers, and exactly 12 patrol craft meant for piracy deterrence. Nothing that could fight a real military force. The ships closed in. They were sleek and dangerous, covered in weapons. Their hulls bore the mark of the Valkoran Empire, the massive galactic government that ruled 40,000 worlds. Juan had never seen Imperial ships in person before. Humanity was too small, too far out on the frontier to attract their attention. Until now, a transmission came through. The face that appeared on screen was alien, with 4 eyes and skin like polished metal. It spoke through a translator device. Human settlement designated New Haven. You will submit to Imperial authority immediately. You will accept our garrison. You will pay tribute. You have 1 hour to comply. Governor Tejan arrived at the station, breathing hard from running. He was a civilian administrator, a man who solved problems with meetings and paperwork. He looked at the fleet on the sensors and went pale. "We have to talk to them," Tejan said. "We have treaties. We're an independent colony. We have rights under galactic law." Juan wanted to tell him that laws didn't matter when you had no way to enforce them. But Tejan was already opening a communication channel. "This is Governor Tejan of New Haven. We are a peaceful human colony, operating under the Independent Settlement Charter of 2285, we acknowledge the Valkoran Empire's authority in their territory. But New Haven is sovereign human space. We respectfully decline your offer of protection." The Valkoran commander didn't even blink. "You misunderstand. This is not an offer. This is annexation. You are now Imperial subjects. Prepare to receive our landing force." "We cannot accept this," Tejan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We request mediation through the Galactic Assembly. We have done nothing to warrant military action. Your compliance is not required, only your submission." The transmission ended. Juan looked at his sensor display. The Valkyran fleet was moving into orbital positions, not around the defense station, around the planet itself, around the cities. "Sir," one of his officers called out. "They're powering up weapons, but they're not targeting us. They're targeting the residential districts." Tejan grabbed Juan's arm. "They wouldn't. It's against every galactic law. There are children down there, hospitals, schools." Juan had served in the Colonial Defense Force for 20 years. He'd fought pirates and raiders. He'd seen violence. But he'd never seen anything like what happened next. The Valkoran ships opened fire. Beams of energy lanced down from orbit. They hit the elementary school in Sector 7 first. The building where 800 children were still in class simply ceased to exist, replaced by a crater of molten rock. Then the hospital in Sector 4. Then the residential towers in Sector 9. Juan watched his home burn from space. He screamed orders to launch their patrol craft to do something, anything. But what could 12 small ships do against hundreds of warships? The patrol craft lasted 3 minutes before they were vaporized. Dr. Minji was in the children's hospital when the bombardment began. She was examining a boy with a broken arm when the windows exploded inward. The building shook. Minji grabbed the boy and ran for the emergency shelter, but she could hear the screaming. So much screaming. She passed a window and saw the neighborhood across the street simply vanish in a flash of white light. The shockwave hit a second later, throwing her against the wall. When she struggled to her feet, half the hospital was gone. She could see the sky where the western wing used to be. Minji ran through the chaos, trying to reach the pediatric ward. She found it collapsed. She dug through rubble with her bare hands, searching for survivors. She found bodies instead. Small bodies. Children who would never grow up. A little girl named Bora was dying in her mother's arms in the remains of what used to be a daycare center. She was 8 years old. She liked drawing pictures of stars and dreamed of being a spaceship pilot. The energy blast had caught them both, but the mother had shielded her daughter with her own body. "Mommy, it hurts," Bora whispered. Her mother held her tighter, tears streaming down her face. "I know, baby, I know. Just close your eyes. It'll stop hurting soon." Bora closed her eyes. She never opened them again. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. The Valkyran fleet was methodical and thorough. They destroyed every city, every town, every settlement. They didn't target military installations because there barely were any. They targeted homes. They targeted the places where people lived and loved and raised their families. When it was over, 2.1 million people were dead. Only scattered survivors remained, hiding in bunkers and shelters, traumatized and broken. Commander Juan made it to an escape pod with 47 survivors, including Dr. Minji. They launched during the bombardment, hoping the Valkyran ships would be too busy killing to notice one small pod escaping. They were right. The pod jumped to faster than light speed and headed toward the nearest human outpost 3 weeks away. Before they jumped, Juan sent a message. It was encrypted with the highest level codes meant only for specific people in human space. People most of the galaxy didn't know existed. The message was simple. New Haven is gone. They killed everyone. They killed our children. All of them. This is a Contingency 1 event. Repeat Contingency 1. Then the pod jumped away, leaving behind a dead world. The Valkyran Empire issued a statement to the Galactic Assembly. They had pacified a rebellious human settlement that refused lawful imperial authority. They expected humanity to accept imperial protection within 30 days or face similar consequences. The galaxy watched. Some species expressed sympathy. Most simply accepted it as the way things worked. The Valkyran Empire was powerful. Humanity was weak. This was the natural order. They would learn how wrong they were. The Galactic Assembly met on Concordia Prime, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for the civilized species of the galaxy. 847 species sent representatives. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate beings that breathed different atmospheres, lived in different gravities, and saw different wavelengths of light. Ambassador Jiwan walked into the chamber with her delegation. She was a small woman by human standards, elegant and controlled. She had spent 15 years building relationships with alien species, promoting peace and cooperation. She believed in diplomacy. She believed in the rule of law. But when she looked at the Valkyran delegation sitting in their seats, smug and unconcerned, she felt something cold settle in her chest. Behind her walked Delegate Yuna, a younger diplomat who had lost her entire family on New Haven. Yuna's hands trembled slightly as she carried the datapad containing their presentation. On it were names. 2.1 million names. Every person who died, the assembly came to order. The chief arbiter, an ancient being from one of the founding species, spoke in a voice that resonated through translation devices. We gathered to address the incident at the human colony of New Haven. Ambassador Jiwan, you have requested this emergency session. Present your case, Jiwan stood. She activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above the assembly floor. Images of New Haven before the attack. Parks filled with children. Markets bustling with life. Schools and hospitals and homes. Then the images changed. They showed the bombardment, the fires, the destruction. She didn't show the bodies. She didn't need to. Every being in the chamber could imagine what happened to unprotected civilians under orbital bombardment. 3 weeks ago, the Valkyran Empire destroyed the human colony of New Haven without warning or provocation, Jiwan said. Her voice was steady, but those who knew her could hear the rage underneath. They murdered 2.1 million civilians. 63% were children under the age of 18. They bombed schools. They bombed hospitals. They specifically targeted civilian infrastructure. She paused, letting the images speak for themselves. We bring formal charges of genocide to this assembly. We demand justice under galactic law. We demand that those responsible face trial. We demand reparations. We demand acknowledgement that what happened was a crime against sentient life itself. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species expressed horror. Others remained silent. A few even seemed bored, as if this was just another day in galactic politics. The Valkyran High Arbiter stood. He was tall, covered in that metallic skin that marked his species. He looked at Jiwan the way someone might look at an insect. The humans present an emotional appeal, but they misrepresent facts, he said. New Haven was offered imperial protection. They refused. They were warned of consequences. They refused again. The Empire acted within its rights to establish order in our expanding territory. Your territory? Jiwan's voice was sharp. New Haven was established 80 years ago. It was registered with the Galactic Assembly as independent human space. You have no claim to it. We claim all space that is not defended, the High Arbiter replied. This is the way of the galaxy. The strong rule. The weak submit. Humanity is weak. You have 30 colonies scattered across the frontier. You have a few hundred warships. You have no allies. You cannot defend yourselves, so you will accept our protection. You call murder protection? We call it establishing order. If humanity had submitted peacefully, no one would have died. The fault lies with your stubborn refusal to accept reality. The chamber erupted again. The Threnari delegation, a peaceful species known for their philosophers, spoke up. The Valkoran actions seemed disproportionate. Perhaps mediation could— Mediation? The High Arbiter laughed. It sounded like metal scraping metal. We are beyond mediation. Humanity will submit within 30 days. If they refuse, we will repeat what we did to New Haven on every human world. Earth, Mars, Europa, all of them. We will not waste time with negotiations. Silence fell across the assembly. It was a naked threat of complete extermination. 15 billion human lives held hostage. Jiwan looked around the chamber. She saw sympathy on some faces, but she also saw fear and calculation. The Valkoran Empire controlled 40,000 worlds. They had 3 million warships. They had crushed 40 species before humanity. No one wanted to make them an enemy. The Chief Arbiter spoke. The Assembly will form a committee to investigate the incident and issue recommendations within 90 days. 90 days? Una stood up, her voice breaking. They killed my entire family. They killed 2 million people. And you want to form a committee? We must follow proper procedures, the Chief Arbiter said. Your procedures are worthless, Una said. Your laws are worthless. You're all cowards. Delegate Una, Jiwan said quietly. But Una wasn't finished. You sit here in your comfortable chamber and debate while children burn. You've done this before. When the Valkoran attacked the Dressy homeworld, you debated. When they enslaved the Morton colonies, you debated. You never do anything. You just watch, the High Arbiter smiled. The young one understands the galaxy better than her elder. Yes, we have done this before. We will do it again. This is how power works. Accept it or die. Ambassador Jiwan touched Yuna's arm, calming her. Then she turned to face the entire assembly. When she spoke, her voice was different, colder, harder. You believe you know humanity, Jiwan said. You have met our merchants. You have met our diplomats. You have met our explorers and our scientists. You think you understand what we are. She walked to the center of the chamber floor. Every eye was on her. You have made a mistake. A terrible, fundamental mistake. There are two humanities. You have only met one of them. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the High Arbiter had stopped smiling. For 300 years we have sent our peaceful face to the stars, G1 continued. We sent the explorers, the builders, the dreamers. We sent the people who want to discover and create and cooperate. We hoped the galaxy was civilized. We hoped violence was rare. We hoped our children could grow up in a universe where reason and law mattered. She paused. The weight of what she was about to say seemed to physically press down on her. You have shown us we were wrong. You have killed our children. You have threatened to kill all of our children. And in doing so, you have awakened something that we kept sleeping for 2 centuries, something we hoped we would never need again. Una stepped forward. Her anger transformed into something colder. You're about to meet the other humanity, the one that has not walked among the stars, the one we left behind on purpose, the one that remembers what humans are truly capable of when you threaten what we love. G1 looked directly at the High Arbiter. You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. Lesson learned. Now we'll teach you something about humanity. We are very patient. We are very good at waiting, and we never ever forget. The human delegation turned and walked out of the assembly. They left behind confusion and uncertainty. Some species didn't understand the warning, but a few of the older species, the ones who had studied Earth's history, felt a chill. They had read about humanity's wars, about what humans did to each other before they left their planet, about the weapons they created, the tactics they developed, the sheer brutality they were capable of when pushed. Those species began quietly evacuating their populations from worlds near Valkoran space. The High Arbiter watched the humans leave and laughed again. 30 days, he called after them. Then we come for Earth. In the empty corridor outside, Yuna asked Jiwan, "Will they really come? The home guard? I thought they were just a rumor." Jiwan's hands were shaking now that she was away from the cameras. "They're real." Commander Huan's message triggered the protocol. "They're already mobilizing. Can they win? Against the entire Valkoran Empire?" Jiwan didn't answer right away. She thought about what she'd read in the classified files, about the weapons that were never supposed to be used, about the soldiers who trained for a war that was never supposed to happen. "They won't win," she said quietly. "They'll make the Valkyran wish they had never heard of humanity. There's a difference." The elevator descended 50 levels beneath the surface of Mars. Ambassador Jiwan stood in silence as the numbers counted down. Beside her, Delegate Yuna fidgeted nervously. Neither had been to this place before. Most humans didn't even know it existed. The elevator opened into a corridor carved from red Martian rock. Armed soldiers in black uniforms stood at attention. Their weapons were unlike anything used by the Colonial Defense Force. These were military grade, designed for one purpose only. General Doyen waited at the end of the corridor. He was older than Jiwan, maybe 70, with gray hair and a face that looked carved from stone. He wore a uniform that bore no insignia, no rank markers, nothing that would identify him to outsiders. "Ambassador," he said, "I received your message from the Assembly. The protocol has been activated." "Show me," Jiwan said. "Show me everything." Doyen led them through a security checkpoint that scanned their DNA, their retinas, and something else Jiwan couldn't identify. Then through another corridor. Then into a command center that stretched as far as she could see. Thousands of people worked at stations, monitoring screens, coordinating operations. A massive holographic display showed the entire human-controlled region of space and beyond. But there were markers on the map that Jiwan had never seen before. Secret bases, hidden shipyards, weapons facilities. "What is this place?" Yuna whispered. "This is contingency operations," Doyen said. "We've been here for 200 years waiting for this day." He led them to a conference room with walls covered in screens. One screen showed Earth in its early years before humanity reached the stars. Images of war, nuclear explosions, cities in ruins, soldiers fighting in brutal conflicts that killed billions. When humanity finally unified and left Earth, Doyen began. Our leaders faced a choice. We had learned how to build wonders. We could terraform planets, cure diseases, extend lifespans. But we had also learned how to kill. We were very, very good at killing. He changed the image to show the first colony ships leaving Earth, so we made a decision. We would split humanity into two groups. The colonial fleet would be peaceful. They would explore, trade, make friends with alien species. They would represent humanity's better nature. They would carry no weapons of mass destruction. They would resolve conflicts through diplomacy. Another image appeared, ships that looked nothing like the civilian vessels Jiwan knew. These were predators, sleek and dangerous. The home guard would stay in Sol system. We would be the warriors. We would develop weapons, train soldiers, and prepare for the day when someone threatened humanity's existence. We would be the secret that kept the peace. For 200 years it worked, Admiral Suhyun said, entering the room. She was younger than Doyen, maybe 50, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Colonial humanity expanded. You made first contact with dozens of species. You built a reputation as peaceful explorers. No one knew we existed. Jiwan felt sick to her stomach. You've been preparing for war while we were building peace? We were preparing for this war, Doyun corrected. We always knew it might come. The galaxy is not kind. We studied every species you encountered. We mapped their biology, their psychology, their military capabilities. We identified their weaknesses. We designed weapons to exploit those weaknesses. He pulled up files on the Valkoran, detailed analysis of their physiology, their command structure, their fleet deployments. Information that should have taken decades to gather. We've been watching them for 150 years, Doyen said. We knew they were expanding. We knew they were aggressive. We hoped they would never notice humanity. We were wrong. Dr. Hyunwoo, a small man in a lab coat, stepped forward. Let me show you what we've developed. He led them through another series of corridors into a research facility. Behind reinforced glass, scientists worked on devices that made Jiwan's skin crawl. This is a nanoplague, Yunwu explained, pointing to a sealed container. It's programmed to target specific genetic markers. We have versions for every major species in the galaxy. Release it in an atmosphere and it will kill only that species. Everything else remains unharmed. That's a war crime, Yuna said. War crimes are rules the strong impose on the weak, Yunwu said without emotion. The Valkoran don't follow rules. Neither will we. He showed them more. Weapons that could ignite stars. Devices that could crack planets. AI-controlled swarms that could overwhelm any defense. Technologies banned by every galactic treaty. We've had 200 years to think about how to kill, Hyunwoo said. We've been very thorough. Admiral Soo-hyun took them to the shipyards next. They traveled by underground train to a massive cavern hollowed out beneath Mars's surface. Inside were ships. Thousands of them, the Ghost Navy, Soo-hyun said. 10,000 warships that don't appear on any registry. Each one is designed for stealth and overwhelming violence. They can travel faster than any Valkoran ship. They can hide in ways the Valkoran can't detect. They can kill and vanish before the enemy knows they're there. Ji-won stared at the fleet. It was larger than the entire colonial defense force, and it had been hidden all this time right under humanity's nose. How many people are part of this? She asked. 3 million, Doyen said. Soldiers, technicians, scientists, intelligence operatives. All volunteers. All willing to do what's necessary to protect humanity. He led them to another section where soldiers were training. But these weren't ordinary soldiers. They moved like predators, practicing scenarios that made Ji-won's blood run cold. Infiltration, assassination, psychological warfare. Captain Yoon-ji, the Special Operations Commander, demonstrated for them. She was small and unremarkable looking, the kind of person you wouldn't notice in a crowd. Then she moved. In seconds, she had disabled 3 training drones using methods Ji-won didn't understand. We don't fight fair, Yoon-ji said simply. The Valkyran expect conventional warfare. They expect rules. We'll give them nightmares instead. Back in the command center, Doyen pulled up intelligence reports. We already have 400 operatives embedded in Valkoran territory. Some have been in place for decades. They're in military commands, government offices, even the Imperial Palace. The Valkoran don't know they exist. How? Ji-won asked. Because we're patient, Doyen said. Because we think in centuries, not years. Because when we commit to something, we commit completely. He turned to face her directly. The Valkoran made a mistake. They assumed our peaceful colonies represented all of humanity. They forgot that humans are apex predators. We evolved by outthinking, outplanning, and outkilling everything on our planet. We didn't stop being dangerous. We just chose not to show it. Ji-won walked to the massive holographic display. She could see the Valkoran Empire spread across thousands of light years. 40,000 worlds. 3 million warships. 70 trillion citizens. How can we possibly win against that? She asked. We don't have to win, Admiral Soo-hyun said. We have to make them bleed. We have to make them afraid. We have to make them understand that threatening humanity has a cost they can't afford to pay. General Doyen stood beside Ji-won. Ambassador, you represent the humanity that explores and builds. You represent hope and civilization. But sometimes civilization needs monsters to protect it. We are those monsters. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. We have waited 200 years for this. He pulled up an image of New Haven. The ruins, the graves, the memorial where 2 million names would be carved. They killed our children, Doyen said quietly. They threatened to kill all our children. There is no rule, no law, no treaty that will stop us from making them pay for that. The only question is whether you give us permission to do what we were created to do. Ji-won looked at Yuna. The young diplomat's face was hard with grief and anger. She nodded. Ji-won thought about Bora and the 2 million others. She thought about the High Arbiter's smug smile. She thought about the galaxy's indifference. She had spent her entire career building bridges. Now she was about to burn them all down. Do it, she said. Bring our people home from New Haven. Then show the Valkyran what humanity really is. General Doyen saluted. It was an old military gesture, one that hadn't been used in the colonies for generations. It will be done. Admiral Soo-hyun was already issuing orders. Across the command center, stations lit up with activity. The Ghost Navy began launching from hidden bases. Operatives in Valkoran space received their activation codes. Weapons that were never supposed to be used were loaded and prepared. The other humanity was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Valkoran Empire received the first report 72 hours after the Galactic Assembly meeting. 47 admirals had died within a single day, some in accidents, some in what looked like natural causes, some simply vanished. The High Arbiter demanded an investigation. His security forces found nothing, no evidence, no witnesses, no trace of who was responsible. Then his own flagship suffered a catastrophic reactor breach. The High Arbiter survived because he wasn't aboard at the time. 3,000 crew members weren't so lucky. The reactor had been sabotaged, but the saboteur was never found. In the Imperial Command Center on the Throne World, military leaders gathered to assess the situation. They were confused and angry. How could humans strike so quickly? The Colonial Defense Force was still days away from mobilizing. They didn't know about the Home Guard. They didn't know about the 400 operatives already embedded in their empire. They didn't know that humanity had been preparing for this war for 2 centuries. Operative Hyejin sat in that very command center, wearing the uniform of a Valkoran intelligence officer. She had worked there for 12 years, slowly gaining trust and access. Today she had activated the self-destruct sequence on the High Arbiter's flagship. Tomorrow she would do worse. She listened to the Valkoran commanders argue about how to respond. They still thought this was a conventional war. They were wrong. Captain Sungmin commanded the stealth destroyer named Requiem. It was one of 10,000 ships in the Ghost Navy, but it was special. It could bend light around itself, becoming invisible to sensors. It could travel through dark space, the empty regions between stars where no one looked. Sungmin received his orders and smiled grimly. His target was a Valkoran supply hub, 300 light-years inside Imperial territory. It supplied 12 regional fleets with fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Requiem appeared from nowhere, dropping out of dark space directly inside the hub's defense perimeter. The defenders didn't even see it coming. Sungmin's weapons officer opened fire. In 12 minutes, 200 cargo vessels were destroyed. The fuel depot exploded, taking out 3 nearby stations. Repair facilities burned. The hub was completely destroyed. Then Requiem vanished back into dark space before the Valkoran defense fleet could respond. They arrived to find ruins and no enemy to fight. This pattern repeated across the Empire. Human ships appeared, killed, and disappeared. The Valkoran couldn't track them, couldn't predict them, couldn't stop them. How are they moving without detection? A Valkoran admiral demanded. No one had an answer. Human stealth technology was 200 years more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. The Home Guard had perfected it specifically for this purpose. Lieutenant Minho led a special operations team of 20 soldiers. Their mission was simple and impossible. They would infiltrate a Valkoran prison colony holding human slaves from New Haven, free the prisoners, and escape. They approached the planet in a ship disguised as a Valkoran transport. They landed at the prison using forged credentials that Operative Hyejin had provided. They walked right through the front gate. The Valkoran guards never suspected anything until Minho's team moved. The guards died before they could raise an alarm. The team swept through the prison complex like shadows, eliminating resistance with surgical precision. They found 300 human prisoners. Most were injured. All were traumatized. Minho's team got them to the transport and lifted off, but Minho did something else before leaving. He activated a broadcasting device that sent the entire operation to every Valkoran communication channel in the sector. He wanted them to watch. He wanted them to know. The message was clear. We're coming for every human you've taken, and we'll walk through your entire military to get them. The Valkoran Empire mobilized its forces. They sent fleets to hunt down the human ships. They increased security on every installation. They interrogated their own people looking for spies. It wasn't enough. Minho's team hit 17 more prison colonies. Each time they broadcast the operation. Each time the Valkoran defenders died without landing a single hit. Each time the human prisoners came home, the Valkoran soldiers began to whisper among themselves. They called the human teams ghosts or demons. They said humans moved faster than should be possible. They said humans could see in the dark and walk through walls. It was just fear talking, but fear was a weapon too. And the Home Guard wielded it expertly. Dr. Hyunwoo released his first weapon in the 4th week of the war. The target was a Valkoran fortress world named Kelmar. 3 million soldiers were stationed there, along with a massive shipyard and weapons factory. A single stealth ship entered orbit and released a cloud of nanomachines. They spread through the atmosphere, invisible and dormant. Then, all at once, they activated. The nanomachines were programmed to target Valkoran biology specifically. Within 6 hours, every Valkoran on the planet was dead. But the other species on the planet, the civilians and slaves, were untouched. The ecosystem remained intact. Only the Valkoran died. The galaxy watched in horror. The weapon was broadcast on every news channel. Species that had remained neutral suddenly saw what humanity was capable of. The Threnari delegation sent a message to Ambassador Jiwan. "You have gone too far. This is a crime against sentient life." Jiwan's response was broadcast publicly. "You're right. We are breaking every rule. The same rules that didn't protect our children. The same rules that let the Valkyran murder 2 million civilians without consequence. If the galaxy won't deliver justice, we will deliver vengeance." 3 minor species quietly began supplying the Home Guard with intelligence and resources. Then 5 more. Then 20. The galaxy was choosing sides. The Valkoran Empire tried to strike back. They sent fleets to attack human colonies, thinking they could force humanity to fight a conventional war. But the Ghost Navy was always there first, waiting in ambush. Admiral Suyun demonstrated the difference between colonial and home guard tactics. When a Valkyran fleet of 300 ships approached the human colony of New Sol, they expected a desperate defense. Instead, they found 500 human ships waiting for them. The battle lasted 40 minutes. The Valkoran fleet was annihilated. The human ships took minimal casualties. Then they vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Valkoran commanders couldn't understand it. Where were these ships coming from? How did humanity hide an entire fleet? Operative Heejin sent them the answer. She released 200 years of classified documents showing the Home Guard's existence. The Valkoran leadership realized they weren't fighting the peaceful colonies. They were fighting an entirely different humanity. Captain Yunji's team conducted psychological operations across Valkoran space. They infiltrated military bases and left messages. "We know where you sleep. We know where your families live. Surrender or we'll visit them next." They released recordings of Valkoran officers begging for mercy before they died. They showed footage of human soldiers moving through Valkoran strongholds like they owned them. They made the Valkoran Empire feel powerless in their own territory. The Empire captured a human operative named Jisoo. She was young, barely 25, and had been gathering intelligence in a Valkoran military command center. They tortured her for information, broadcast her suffering to break human morale. Jisoo gave them nothing. For 3 days, she endured pain that would break most beings. She never revealed a single piece of information. When she finally died, her last words were broadcast across the galaxy. "For New Haven, for the children." The torture backfired spectacularly. Species that had been sympathetic to the Valkoran turned against them. Even some Valkoran citizens questioned their government's methods. More importantly, Jisoo's death enraged the Home Guard. General Doyen authorized the use of weapons that had been considered too extreme. Captain Sungmin's Requiem destroyed an entire Valkoran fleet staging area, killing 50,000 soldiers in retaliation. 6 months into the war, the Valkoran Empire was bleeding. They had lost hundreds of worlds to sabotage and rebellion. Their supply lines were shattered. Their commanders were paranoid, seeing human spies everywhere. Their soldiers were demoralized, afraid to patrol their own bases. The empire that ruled 40,000 worlds was being torn apart by a species they had dismissed as weak. High Arbiter Velmuth sent a message to Ambassador Jiwan. It was the first time the Valkyran had attempted negotiation. "We offer peace. We will pay reparations for New Haven. We will withdraw from human space. We will punish those responsible for the attack." Jiwan received the message in the command center on Mars. General Doyen stood beside her. Admiral Suyun waited for orders. Captain Yunji and her special forces were ready for the final phase. "Is it enough?" Doyen asked. Jiwan thought about Bora dying in her mother's arms. About 2 million names that would never be forgotten. About the High Arbiter's threat to destroy all of humanity. "No," she said. "We end this completely. We make sure they never threaten humanity again. We make sure the entire galaxy understands what happens when you kill our children." She looked at the map showing the Valkoran throne world. Prepare Operation Fallen Empire. The final phase was beginning. The Valkoran throne world had never been touched by war in its 10,000-year history. It was the jewel of the Empire, a planet of impossible beauty and wealth. Towers of crystal reached into the sky, gardens stretched for hundreds of miles. The Imperial Palace sat at the center of the capital city, protected by shields that could withstand a supernova. 20 billion beings lived there. Most had never seen combat. They believed themselves untouchable, protected by the might of the greatest empire in the galaxy. They were wrong. Operation Fallen Empire began with Operative Hyejin and the 400 embedded agents activating simultaneously across Valkoran space. They had spent years, even decades, gaining trust and access. Now they revealed their true purpose. In the Imperial Intelligence Headquarters, Hyejin uploaded 200 years of classified human files to the Galactic Network. Every species could now see what the Valkoran Empire had done. Massacres, enslavement, genocide, crimes spanning millennia. The Valkoran's allies began abandoning them within hours. On the industrial world of Torvak, 3 human agents sabotaged the megaforges that produced 60% of the Empire's military equipment. The forges exploded in a chain reaction that killed nobody, but destroyed the facilities completely. The Valkoran economy began collapsing immediately. Admiral Suhyun launched the Ghost Navy's final offensive. 10,000 ships emerged from dark space simultaneously across 1,000 Valkoran worlds. The coordination was perfect. The timing was flawless. The Valkoran fleet tried to respond everywhere at once and accomplished nothing. Captain Sung Min's Requiem was part of a strike force hitting the Valkoran fleet staging areas. They destroyed shipyards, supply depots, and command stations. The Imperial fleet that once numbered 3 million ships was cut in half within a week. But the throne world remained. The heart of the Empire. The symbol of Valkoran power. Captain Unji stood in the briefing room with her special operations team. 200 soldiers, the best humanity had ever produced. Their mission was simple to state and impossible to execute. Infiltrate the throne world, penetrate the palace, and capture the Emperor alive. The shields are impenetrable, Lieutenant Minho said, studying the tactical display. Nothing we have can break through them from orbit. Then we don't go through them, Yunji replied. We go under them. The plan was insane. But insanity had worked for humanity so far. The throne world's shield generators were powered by geothermal taps deep underground. The Valkoran had protected the surface entrance but never considered that someone might dig from outside the shield perimeter. Why would they? It would take years to tunnel through that much rock, unless you had mining equipment designed to tunnel through asteroids in hours. The Home Guard had spent months secretly positioning drilling machines in the mountains outside the capital city. Now they activated, boring through solid rock faster than the Valkoran believed possible. Yunji's team infiltrated through those tunnels. They emerged inside the shield perimeter in the palace gardens at night. They wore adaptive camouflage that made them nearly invisible. They moved in complete silence. The Valkoran Palace Guard were elite soldiers who had never faced a real threat. They patrolled the gardens in ceremonial armor, believing the shields made them invulnerable. Yunji's team killed them quietly one by one, dragging the bodies out of sight. Minho led the first squad through the palace's lower levels. They encountered more guards and eliminated them with brutal efficiency. These weren't soldiers like the peaceful colonists. These were humans who had trained their entire lives for one purpose: war. They fought through corridors of marble and gold, past treasuries filled with wealth stolen from conquered species. They disabled security systems that Operative Hyejin had taught them to bypass. They moved like they owned the palace. The Emperor's personal guard finally realized something was wrong when half their force stopped reporting. They sealed the Emperor in his throne room and prepared for a siege. Yunji's team breached the throne room using shape charges that blew the doors inward. The Emperor's guard fought bravely but died quickly. Human weapons were designed to kill Valkoran efficiently. The Home Guard had studied Valkoran biology for 150 years. The Emperor himself was ancient, over 300 years old. He had ruled the Empire for longer than humanity had been in space. He had ordered the deaths of billions across 40 species. He had authorized New Haven's destruction with less thought than most beings gave to their breakfast. Now he stood before Captain Yunji, surrounded by human soldiers, his throne room filled with the bodies of his guards. "You cannot win," the Emperor said. "I am one being. Kill me and another takes my place. The Empire is eternal. Watch, Yunji said simply. She activated a holographic display showing real-time feeds from across the Valkoran Empire. Worlds declaring independence, fleets surrendering, subject species rising in rebellion. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years was collapsing in days. We studied your empire, Yunji told him. We learned its weaknesses. You rule through fear, but fear only works when you seem invincible. We've shown the galaxy you're not. We've shown them you bleed. Another display lit up, showing the orbital battle above the throne world. The Valkoran defense fleet was being systematically destroyed by Admiral Suhyun's ships. The shields that protected the planet were failing as their power sources were targeted. You killed 2 million of our people, Yunji continued. Most of them were children. You threatened to kill 15 billion more. You expected us to surrender. You expected us to accept our place as your subjects. She leaned closer to the Emperor. You forgot something important. Humans are not like other species. We don't accept. We don't submit. Push us hard enough and we become something you can't imagine. We become the monsters that give your soldiers nightmares. Outside, the palace shields finally failed. Human ships appeared in the sky above the capital. The citizens of the throne world looked up and saw their invincibility shattered. General Doyen broadcast a message to every world in the Valkoran Empire. The Emperor is captured. Your fleet is destroyed. Your economy is broken. Surrender or face complete annihilation. You have 24 hours. The Valkoran military command met in emergency session. They considered fighting. They considered rallying the fleet. Then they looked at the reports coming in from every sector. 70% of their forces were gone. Their supply lines didn't exist. The species they had conquered were in open revolt. They surrendered. The Treaty of Sol was signed 3 months later on Earth. Representatives from 800 species attended. The terms were harsh but necessary. The Valkoran Empire's territory was reduced by 80%. Every species they had conquered gained independence. The Emperor abdicated and faced trial for war crimes. The Empire would pay reparations for 1,000 years. Most significantly, a memorial would be built on the throne world itself. It would list every name of every person killed at New Haven. 2 million names carved in stone. A permanent reminder of what happened when you murdered humanity's children. Ambassador Jiwan stood before the Galactic Assembly to explain what had happened. The chamber was silent as she spoke. For 200 years we sent our peaceful face to the stars, she said. We hoped the galaxy was civilized. We hoped reason and law would prevail. We were wrong. She gestured to General Doyen and the Home Guard representatives present. These people are not monsters. They are not aberrations. They are humanity too. We are both. We explore and we protect. We build and we destroy. We reach out in friendship and we strike back in fury. General Doyen stepped forward. Every human parent would die to protect their child. Every human child grows up learning about those who stood against the darkness. You killed our children. You left us no choice but to become the darkness ourselves. The galaxy learned its lesson. Within a year, 200 species freed from Valkoran rule formed the Free Federation, with humanity as a founding member. Treaties were signed. Trade agreements established. The galaxy began rebuilding, but everyone remembered. The peaceful human merchants who traded at galactic markets were the same species that had destroyed an empire. The human diplomats who negotiated treaties represented a species that would burn the galaxy down to protect their own. Humanity's colonies expanded again. But now when other species met humans, they were polite. They were respectful. They understood that human friendliness was a choice, not a weakness. On New Haven's ruins, Ambassador Jiwan and General Doyen stood before the memorial. 2 million names were carved into black stone. The youngest was 3 years old. The oldest was 94. Was it worth it? Jiwan asked quietly. Becoming what we tried to leave behind? Doyen was silent for a long moment. He looked at the names. Boris was near the top, listed with her age, 8 years old. Ask me that question every day, he finally said. I'll never have a good answer. We did what we had to do. Whether it was right is something history will decide. The galaxy is afraid of us now, Jiwan said. Good, Doyen replied. Fear keeps the peace when laws fail. Our colonies can expand, knowing that no one will threaten them again. Our children can grow up safely. That's what we fought for. He turned to leave, then paused. Ambassador, you asked if it was worth it. I don't know. But I know this. If someone threatens humanity's children again, we'll do it all over again. Because that's what we are. That's what we'll always be. The species that builds civilizations and burns empires, the choice of which humanity you meet is yours to make. Ji-won remained at the memorial long after Do-yeon left. She read the names, all 2 million of them. Each one was a person with dreams and hopes and families. Each one died because an empire believed itself above consequences. The galaxy would never forget New Haven. But more importantly, they would never forget what happened after. They would never forget that humanity had 2 faces, the explorer and the warrior, the builder and the destroyer, the friend and the nightmare. They had met the peaceful humanity for 200 years. Now they had met the other one, and the message was clear across every star and every world. Leave humanity's children alone, or face the consequences the treaty held. The peace lasted, and when humans walked among the stars, other species gave them room, not from hatred but from understanding. Humanity was unique in the galaxy. They could be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. The choice was always yours to make, just choose wisely.